Welcome once again to the Yiboneh Beit Midrash in Baka, Jerusalem. Today we are dealing with, again, the Kliyakar's interpretation in Bamidbar, Numbers, chapter 35, verse 15. Moses asks the army when they come back from war, did you let the females live? That's a very awkward question, and hang in there, we're going to get to the answer. Okay, welcome back. I just want to remind you all, if you like what you hear tonight, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you will be notified about all upcoming videos once they're uploaded. So we are in chapter 31 of Numbers, verse 15. It's an amazing question that Moses poses to the army. Moses says to them, V'yomer aleihem Moshe, Hachiyitem kol nekeva? You left the females alive, all the females alive? I mean, come on, what's going on here? And why should they have been made? Why would they have made a mistake? That is what we are going to investigate. First of all, should they have known not to allow the females to have lived? Why should the females not have lived? And what mistake could they have made that they did this if it was wrong? Okay, so the Kliyakar begins by telling us, Nira, Sheta'ut ze bolehem. This is a mistake, and the mistake came to them in the following way. Why was it a mistake? Lefish kavar yodu tzivui. They already knew, meaning the Jewish people, Israelites in the desert. They already knew. It happens to be a later verse, believe it or not. We're in Numbers 31, but in Deuteronomy chapter 23, verse 4, it says that and now this is a good question, what does it mean? An Ammonite or a Moabite shall not enter the assembly of the Lord, even the 10th generation shall never enter the assembly of the Lord. Lo yavo Ammoni uMoavi b'kahal Hashem. Now, you would think, from Pashat Pshat, simple reading, that no person, whether male or female, who is an Ammonite or a Moabite, is allowed to ever convert. And if they did convert, you can't marry them. So that's not what it means. First of all, they can convert, but you can't marry them. So who are they going to marry? They can marry each other. And there's other people they can also marry as well, but they can't marry the regular Israelites. Okay. So the first thing is, we're talking about the Midianites right now, okay? Even though this verse that we just referred to. But in our chapter, Numbers 31:15, we're talking about the Midianite women. So what's the mistake? Well, they already knew that the Ammonite and the Moabite women are actually allowed to marry. They're allowed to convert and then marry. And what is our biggest proof? Ruth. Right? Ruth, the famous convert, the grandmother of David HaMelech, of the Mashiach. Right? The Mashiach is going to come through this woman Ruth, who is a righteous convert. Okay? A righteous convert. And she got married, and we do know, in case you don't know, I don't remember where I told the story, but I could really try to make it a quick summary. There was a decision made back and forth amongst the Sanhedrin whether or not that was true, that a woman, Moabite or Ammonite, could marry a Jew. And whether it was in Boaz's time, right, or even later with Yishai, the question, is it really proper? Well, we have an oral Torah, and that's why Shavuos, the day we celebrate David HaMelech's birth and his death, was to celebrate the oral Torah. The oral Torah was given simultaneously with the written Torah. Now, David HaMelech on Shavuos is the day of receiving the Torah. He comes via Ruth, who is a Moabite. Now, can you imagine Yishai is wondering, because it's going back and forth for generations, oh, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe my grandfather made a mistake. Maybe there was a mistake. Maybe I shouldn't have married, or maybe not me. not marrying, but who I came from, because I'm a result of Ruth. Maybe I'm not permitted to even be a part of Am Yisrael, Klal Yisrael. And he actually refrained from having intimacy with his own wife. And his own wife got together with the maidservant, who actually, a shifcha, who Yishai made up to have relations with. And he freed her on certain conditions, that maybe she wasn't a shifcha, because that's a problem for a regular Jew. So anyway, so he freed her under certain conditions, that if he was forbidden to marry a Jew, then she's not really free, and if he really is a Jew, then she is free. But in the meantime, David Yishai's own wife confided in the shifcha, and they made up. So the truth is that Yishai's wife became pregnant with David through Yishai, not the other way, not that he impregnated the shifcha, because he was never with the shifcha. They had a plan. She went in covert. Is that what it's called? Covertly? And she was really with Yishai, his own wife. And yes, she became pregnant. And Yishai was wondering, if I wasn't with her, then who was? But the truth was, he was with her. He just didn't know it. So when David was born, he was the black sheep, right? We hear David's pain. We hear his anguish. And the truth is, you can just imagine why we have our relationship with our parents. I mean, we could have been just born adults, right? But the scheme that Hashem makes up, that hopefully we have a healthy relationship, or whatever relationship that we have to work out with our own parents, we're also going to deal on a certain level with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who's our real Father in heaven. So every single human being on the planet is going through their own issues, their only family issues. How do I relate to my parents? How do I relate to Hashem? David had a lot of anguish, and so it's expressed in Psalms. And it really, he talks to every one of our neshamos. All of our souls are like tied up in the soul of the Mashiach, by the way. So when David speaks, I think there was a commercial back in the day. I think it was some hedge fund or something. When this guy speaks, everybody listens. Anyway, when David HaMelech speaks through Psalms, that every soul is resonating. Okay, so I suggest when you have free time, read Psalms, King David. On that verse in Deuteronomy 23:4, it says, an Ammonite and a Moabite shall not enter the assembly of the Lord. It doesn't say they can't convert. He shall not marry an Israelite woman, but that's he. She, like we spoke about Ruth, may. Okay, so what is this mistake they made? It's already known about the women from Ammon and Moab, so we learned out it was Ammoni velo Aminut, right? The Ammonite is allowed. The female from Ammon is allowed. Lefi she'ein derech hanashim lekadem belechem u'b'mayim. Now, when it comes to war, the truth is, we do not want women in battle. Okay, it's not healthy. There may be things for them to do, especially in a mitzvah war. Okay, we may have them cooking and cleaning and filling sandbags and sewing parachutes, but we do not want them with weapons on the front line. No way, no how. Okay, so what happens? We have a complaint. We wanted to go through Moab, and they wouldn't let us. Now we were very hungry. We were thirsty. And they, meaning the nation of Moab and Ammon, they didn't allow us, and they wouldn't come out and give us any bread and water. So on a certain level, we have a ta'ina, we have a complaint. Okay, and it wasn't nice. It's not good. But the truth be told, why should the women suffer? This is a manly thing, meaning the men of Moab made the decision. V'yadua, it's well known, Gemara Yevamos. Iker tam rechukamhu ba'avor shahachitu eshes rabbah. Okay, now, even though we're claiming, okay, we're openly proclaiming The reason you're allowed to marry the women but not the men is why? Because they didn't come out. It was the men that didn't come out. They were responsible in war to come forth with bread. But we know the truth. The truth is, it was noose. There was actual sexual immorality that was happening. But we will put the blame, in other words, we're kind of whitewashing it a little bit, that even though the truth is it's noose, it's immodest relations, even with these women, the Moabites. But we're going to whitewash it and say, you know what? It was because they didn't come forth with bread and water, but that's the men and not the women. Okay, but you know what? It's really, truthfully, it's all combined. Why? Lo kidmum belechem b'mayim. You know why they didn't come forth with lechem and with bread and water? And now we're talking about the Midianite women. Kadeshu re'evim gam tzemeim min torah haderech. You know what? They wanted us to be hungry. They wanted us to be thirsty. You know why? Because the scheme was that they would bring us in. They had these shops set up, okay? They had these shops set up, and the men would come, the Jewish men would come, and they had these regular older women salespersons, and they were saying, come into my shop, you'll really like it. So once the men were secluded, inside the shop they had younger, more beautiful women, and they seduced the men to the point where really, what did they want to do? They said, okay, we'll have intimate relations. I'll have intimate relations with you, but before we do, I just need you to, I would like you to worship my idol. And so they caught the men, I don't know how, I'm sure there's an expression. They caught the men with their hands behind their backs, so to speak, by surprise, and they put them in a hard place. And as a result, the men were basically forced to eat the korbanos, the offerings to their gods. They were hungry, and to drink the wine that they used for libations. And what was the purpose of all that? Kedei lahargilam le'erva, in order to get the men used to or accustomed to or not afraid of having intimacy with these non-Jewish women. And it's brought down in Gemara Sanhedrin, Perek Helech 106a. The Alpha P should be in Haznus Hayu Hanashim Ikar. We know there's no whitewashing, right? The real issue here was the znut, the immodesty by the women. There's no question. Mekom lo nitrachaku hanashim. Nevertheless, the women are not distanced from the Israelite people. Once these non-Jewish women from Ammon and Moab convert, they can marry. It's not a problem. Why? We're blaming the men. The truth is, it's the men who are to blame. Their husbands and their fathers. Shem hifkiru esbanotehem v'hichrichum al haznus. I mean, it's unbelievable. And I'm just going to break in for a moment. Earlier in the Parsha, we talk about the ability to either annul or to hefer neder, to release and to annul vows. And I would suggest I refer you to those earlier classes on what is it. Why does the father or the husband have that ability? Okay, I don't want to go too much into it now, but there is a power or there is a protection that they're affording the women of their lives, and the women basically owe them to a certain extent. And I want to be PC about this, okay? The women are, let's just say, the more vulnerable of the species, and they do require a certain amount of protection, whether it's someone going out and hunting or someone protecting them at night. And to a certain extent, they owe, and I don't mean owe in a big sense, but they owe a certain sense of gratitude. And before they ask their husbands or their fathers to go out of their way to buy, let's say, only gluten-free if they made a vow, or to only certain types of shoes that they want to wear, they should really get their permission and their agreement. Okay, that's what the class is about over there, as well as every Jew to a certain extent also basically requires a agreement from Beis Din, and that's why Beis Din is also able to release the person from a vow. It's conditional from the very beginning. If the woman knew, right, if her husband would know what she's vowing and he would agree to it, she understood from the very beginning. I can only really do this when I'm about to make an oath for or a vow if there's an agreement with the person who is paying for my clothes and my food. Okay, so that's not for now. But the last statement we just made was that in terms of the Midianites, and to a certain great extent, we're also talking about the Moabites, that their husbands and their fathers made hefker. Hefker is a dirty word in this sense. Could you imagine giving up all that protection? I mean, basically you're saying go out and be a prostitute to your children or to your wives. I mean, it's really, I don't even have words. But how were the women able to do this if they didn't have a push? He says they were forced. Shem hafkiru et benotehem. It's true they became hefker, mean ownerless, but hichrichum alzu. The men forced their own wives to be prostitutes. Kima sha'asu, whatever we're going to claim the women did, asu bitzivui ba'alehem o avihem. They acted by the command of their own husbands and fathers. We would never do something like that. I mean, that is, I don't know the words. Huh?
Slow.
Low. Very low. Very low. Because of this, right from this idea, that's why the Israelite men made a mistake. They thought, because of Ammon and Moab it's permissible, so too the Midianite women should be permissible. Remember the question we asked? Moses says, why did you let all the women live? I mean, what kind of question is that? Shekashem shalo nitrachachu hanashim shel Ammon and Moab milavo b'kal Hashem. Just as they were not commanded to distance themselves from entering into relationships with women from Moab and Ammon, and they were allowed to enter the congregation of God, even though they also acted in a very immodest fashion. Nevertheless, in this case, when we go to war against Midian, lo nitztavu laharog hanashim. That's what they thought. It must be that we're not obligated to kill the women in war, because they were also forced to do whatever they ended up doing. I can see the equation. Okay, I'm going to stop the computer here. So this is why we see V'amar lehem Moshe. Moses says to them in our very next verse. Remember, we're dealing with chapter 31, verse 15. Now look at 16. Now, I'm not sure this is the greatest translation. I think the art scroll I like better. They were the same ones who were involved with the children of Israel on Bilam's advice to betray the Lord over the incident of Peor, resulting in a plague among the congregation of the Lord. Hein, Heina Hayu. These were the ones, Livnei Israel, the cause of the Jewish people, Bidvar Bilam, in this matter with Bilam. That's how I would translate it. Although, let's see over here how Art Scroll translate it. Behold, it was they who caused the children of Israel by the word of Bilam to commit a betrayal against Hashem. Okay, so this is what Moses' response is. They were the ones. Well, like Chaim just asked, wasn't Moab and Ammon also involved in this similar act? Wait till you hear the difference. Keep in mind, Moses says they were the ones. So this is exactly why in verse 16, chapter 31, verse 16, the Moses responds to them after he says, why did you let the women live? They were the ones that caused this. So Bishlam and Mitzvahs Ammon and Moav Ladoros, we understand why the men can never marry in. Dinhu Shalo Linkos Hanashim. It's logical. Why should we penalize the women? It's just the men. Minatam Shinit Bear, for the very reason we said before, that it was the men who caused it. Aval Midian, when it comes to Midian, okay, we're not going to be so lenient. Shinitz Tavitem Lahargam, the actual command is to kill them, the women as well. Why? Kal v'chomer shahanashim biklal, because the women were included in the acts. Kederk Shneimar, if you go to Vayikra, Leviticus chapter 20, verse 15, it's referring to the long list of illicit relations, things that are forbidden, a sin. One of them is called bestiality. So the halacha is that not only is the man who was involved in bestiality, but the innocent animal. Now I understand, if you're an animal activist, I get it, you're going to be very upset. I get it. But what about the human dignity, right? When everyone walks down the street to see that cow standing at the corner eating grass, it'll remind everybody about poor, I don't know, wherever he is. Maybe he's dead, maybe he's in jail, maybe he ran away. But everyone will remember the bad act, this abominable act that this person did, and by when they see the cow. So the halach is ve'eta behema taharogu, right? The animal should also be put to death. What's the reason? Because the man came to his own ruination, right? Abomination, and he was basically broken because of this cow. Kach hanashim. So too, in this case, by these particular women, kihein heina be'atzmam, they themselves, hayu livnei Israel, le'evin nega from mikshul. They themselves were the initiators, as we're going to see shortly. They themselves were to the children of Israel a stumbling block and an obstacle. Le'evin negef umikshul. V'hoy lechem lilmod min din habehema el din hanashim halalu. Now, I want to just clarify. There is a thing called a gezerah shav. A kal v'chomer. I have to look into this because, as far as I know, a kal v'chomer, it's one of the 13 hermeneutical principles, cannot be used to enforce the death penalty. So I think there must be other learning that he's not telling us, because if it's only the kal v'chomer, then we're missing some information. Huh?
It's a mamitziyu. We see similar. A kal v'chomer is taking something that is, as we say, light, to compare something to heavy. Just like I could pick up 200 pounds.
Yeah.
This lightweight guy could pick up, certainly could pick up. That's called a kal v'chomer. The mamitziyu is saying that just like I see over here.
Yeah.
So I'm comparing it.
I'll tell you why it's kal v'chomer, because look at the words. That you should learn from what is kal, which is like a behema. A behema is not a human being. I'm a bleeding heart liberal, right? And I believe in the dignity of human beings. Okay, I know there was a sin involved, but nevertheless, I'm not going to learn from an animal. If you kill the animal, then kol shekain, you kill. Okay, we'll look into it.
No, because the kal v'chomer you can't, as you said, you can't.
You can't. So that's why I said there's something missing in my learning. Okay. Shkoyach Yaakov. Okay. Ulamal b'Parshas Pinchas. Now, he mentions that earlier on, he discusses this idea. If you go back to chapter 25, verse 17, I actually think now we're going into the Me Too movement. Okay, why? Why the Me Too movement? Because it's about sexual harassment. Correct? So I would translate this pasuk, this verse, 25:17, as harass. God tells them. I think it's verse 16. Let's just go back. Yeah. It's number 27 on the source sheet, by the way. It's chapter 25. I said 18 or 17, but let's look at both of them. So basically, harass the Midianites, right? Distress the Midianites. Sarur es Midyanim. V'hikitam otam, and smite them. Kitzorarim heim lachem, because they harassed you. In other words, we're taking this. Why should you then be involved in harassing? And I don't mean sexual harassment, I mean killing them. Because they came and harassed you first. For they distressed you with their plots, which they contrived against you. In the incident of Peor, in the incident of Cosby, their sister, this was a sexual advancement, let's say, involving the incident of Cosby, their sister, the daughter of the Midianite chieftain. And as we know, she was slain, Zimri was slain. Look at Rashi there. By submitting their daughters for prostitution. So I'm not making it up. Look at Rashi. Shefkiru benotehem liznus. They put their daughters in a very bad position. So to entice the Jewish people to stray after Peor. But we don't have the obligation to destroy Moab for the sake of Ruth. Now this is an interesting thing, because later we are told to take care of Moab, right? To destroy Moab. But not until Ruth has been, that's what David does take revenge against Moab. But until then, we needed to have Ruth. So don't destroy them, God basically says, without saying it, except for the people in the know, that we need the seed of Moabites around until Ruth converts. And once she converts, and all we have is David in the world, then the Moabites can be taken out. Okay, so that's some really heavy prophecy going on over here in Jerusalem. I invite you all come and visit us. Okay. So we see that that when it comes to the Midianites, they initiated it. Lefi Shebnei Yisrael. Okay. Sorry, I'm going back. Shelachach lo tziv la'ashmidas Moab. Therefore, when it comes to Moab, we're not commanded to destroy Moab yet. It was Israel that started with the Moabites. Okay, now where do we see that? You can go to chapter 25, verse 1. That's in the very beginning. So now just go back to number 26 on the source sheet. It said Israel had settled in Shittim, the Yeshev Yisrael b'Shittim, and what's the next word? V'yachal ha'am liznut et benos Moab. The people started. We're talking about Am Yisrael. Okay, the word Am is, as we already know, it's the Mechutim. It's the most inferior of the Jews. They started the Znut. The Yachel Ha'am Liznut. It's Israel that started the Znut with the daughters of Moab. Okay, but when it comes to the Moab and when it comes to the Midianites, they're the ones that start. So like I told you, this is really touching the Me Too movement, right? Who started the sexual harassment? Okay, for those who know what I'm talking about, fine. So we see here there's a difference in who started. Back into the Kliyakar, Avabenos Midian, we saw the opposite. Fine. Hema bo lachem. It was the Midianite women that started with the men. They came. Kasher hokachnu kol ze birayot. We already gave all the proofs for that. Now, Yecholiot, it's very possible. Sha'al ze amar Moshe. That's why Moses saw to what? Levatel tutam, in order to get rid of their mistake. They come back from war and they got all these women, these Midianite women, who are still alive. What is wrong with you guys? He says, Hein Heina you Livnei Israel, because of them. It's their fault. They came forward. They pushed and initiated. Ki Hein Mahachlu Livnei Israel lepatotam. They were the ones that approached Israel in order to seduce them. Ve'enam doimim livnos Moab, and therefore you do not have a similarity by the daughters of Moab. Ki al kein lo nitrachaknu hanashim milvo bekal Hashem. That's why the women, right, were not distanced from marrying and entering the congregation of God. That the congregation of God, by the way, is the Jewish people. Lefi shelo hayu because the Moabites had never taken the initiative. It was the Jewish men. But when it comes to the doors of Midian, it was them who started the ruination, who started the seduction. Okay, so I would like to open this up for questions, but before I do, if anybody wants to sign off now, I get it. I want to wish you all a Shabbat Shalom, and that we should really take these lessons to heart. We have to understand what God wants of us. He wants us to be moral. He wants us to be loyal to our wives, to our husbands, to our spouses. Okay? He wants us to walk modestly. He wants us to act modestly, talk modestly, right? Behave in all our ways. And this is what, again, I'll stress it again. This is like the key. This is the secret of the Jewish people, right? We are an Am Kadosh. We are a holy nation. And in Kadoshim, even though God says to be holy, He also means not just, what does that mean? To be separate. To be separate, even from that which is permissible. Okay, for sure you have to separate from that which is forbidden. That's a given. But from that which is permissible, also make your limitations, set your boundaries, have borders, and God bless.
Yiboneh Archives,